Hello and welcome to Series 3 of Talking Bottom. I'm Matt Brooks.
I'm Ange Johnson.
And I'm Paul Tanter.
This is the first episode of Series 3 in which we're going to talk about the episode titled Hole, Bottom Hole. That's probably the best joke they have of the names, right?
It's a very good one.
What does it actually mean? What's that double meaning? Why are they're not stuck in any kind of hole? They're elevated.
I suppose
aren't they?
I assume the situation they're in is the hole. No? Yeah.
But that's arduous at best, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they've fallen into a hole that they can't get out of. Because they're elevated. Yeah, but they've found themselves in a hole though.
But they're stuck in a rut. It could be something like that.
No, but the situation that they're in, because they've pissed off.
It's not a hole in any sense.
Is there anything relevant to the situation they were in that might have been a better title? You know, like bottom Ferris wheel doesn't really work, does it?
Bottom demolition.
Maybe.
Well, I have to say, what a misleadingly strong start to the series this was. Excellent. I think this might be my second favourite episode. It's definitely top 3.
It feels almost out of place in terms of it being in Series 3 for me.
Isn't that funny? You're right. It feels like a Series 2 episode.
It does. It feels like maybe they had material left over or another episode that they had already planned, perhaps. Yeah. And there's some from the live show where you can see similarities, actually, in terms of the talking about the stalk margarine competition and, the special cake, all that kind of callback kind of thing. Yeah. So it was clearly material that they'd been already thinking about, and then it's come together and obviously they've been to the fair before, so the gypsy fair, that's something that's been touched upon in Apocalypse. So the idea of them getting trapped at the top of the Ferris wheel perhaps was something that was in Genesis much.
It does feel like there was a lot of different adventures they got up to, which happen off screen. You know what I mean? A lot cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, the writing really does again shine in terms of them describing characters, things that have been happening, but prior to them getting onto the Ferris wheel. Obviously, the opening sort of gambit between them, just literally chatting like a couple of old women, as they do a bit later in this series as well, of how Illy got on the waltzers. And
I almost feel like this episode could be swapped over in terms of quality with the last episode of Series 2. I'm not a huge fan of Sal, and I think if you took this episode and made it the end of Series 2 and you made Sal the beginning of Series 3, that would be more in fitting with the quality of the series that they were in, if that makes sense. Because I do think
half agree.
This is as you said, it's a deceptively good quality episode for the rest of the series, which obviously we'll discuss each episode as they go. But I don't think it's unfair to say now that this was the series that was not as good quality as 1 and 2. Maybe partly because they come back to it 3 years later. Maybe because they'd done the tour, they'd used up a lot of their ideas. I think it's interesting that this is another self-contained episode like the end of Series 2 was, which made me wonder if maybe this episode, the start of it, the genesis, was that it was intended to be an idea for a live episode, possibly, because it's one set, just the two of them. I think it's the only one containing just the two of them that takes place outside the flat. It's definitely the only one that takes place entirely in real time.
Yeah.
So I wondered if towards the end of Series 2 and then with this one, they were going, right, we want to try new ideas. These ones could work as a live show, and then ultimately it didn't.
Because it's then got the very surreal ending of the Hand of God coming in as well. That's it feels very staged as opposed to what they've done before. Yeah. I mean, they obviously at the end of Carnival, they do kill them, which is what happens at the end of this. So they top and tail the series with them both dying like the cartoon characters they are. Yeah,
they could have died in other episodes, but these ones do feel like deaths. You wouldn't survive these ones. This episode, to me, it almost feels like they had a challenge amongst themselves. Like, can we just make a whole episode of just us two talking?
Yeah.
As stripped back as possible.
I think it's quite a brave concept for the show, them trapped basically within 3 feet of each other the whole time. It's not even one where they're in the flat and they can move around. It's almost like they're handcuffed to each other, you know?
They're locked right next to each other. Even fight scenes are they're not impossible because they may manage them, but it doesn't seem like they would be able to, does it?
Yeah, the tight space that they're working in to actually batter the shit out. Well, it's more Eddie, weighted towards Eddie, isn't it? Battering the shit out of Richie.
They fit in an impressive amount and a variety of action, fights. There's quite a decent amount going on in that small space.
Because of how cheap this episode must have been to make. First time I noticed, actually, the backdrop this episode is fucking awful. Never noticed properly before.
The backdrop is terrible, but the rig itself, the set, the Ferris wheel is very good, very impressive.
You wonder whether they've actually got that from some
something
sort of old
else.
fairground or another set that's been constructed with much more of a high budget, I suppose.
Yeah. So just to give the show some context in terms of where it came after the other two series, 1995, the show comes back, BBC Two, it's a great time for comedy. Red Dwarf is at its peak, Bottom comes back. We've had two series in 91 and 92, then there was the live show in 93. So this is the first Bottom we've had back on our screens in the best part of 3 years, and the first Bottom we've had in 2 years.
So for me, this is the first time I saw Bottom on TV. I'd only seen them on tapes before. In fact, I hadn't spoke about Bottom with that many people, and it was this time that people started coming out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, new series of Bottoms on," and thinking, "Oh, how do you know about Bottom? How come you never spoke about this before? You know, before it's just before the internet, before we knew about these things. That's how you heard about things. People would tell you, "Oh, there's a new series of such and such. Oh, did you hear Red Dwarf's not coming back for series 6 because of reasons? What? That can't be true. All these
actually discuss these things or you'd see the teaser trailers that would go out on BBC Two, and you'd be like so excited about sitting down in front of the telly to actually see this go out live.
I missed the very beginning of this episode when it came out live.
Oh really?
They were already stuck. They were already panicking, so I'd missed about 3 minutes or so. I was 11 years old when it went out live. Well, it's obvious what's going on. Up this place they've never been before, they're panicking, they're stuck. I can guess what's happened. It wasn't
but you missed that entire first sort of setup as to why they were there at the fair.
So I missed the first reveal of him being in the dress, in fact, and then when he's in dress later, there's no payoff. I'm like, what's going on there?
I remember watching this live. I was 14 and I was very excited that Bottom was finally back on TV. This was one of the shows that I bought blank VHS tapes for, and make sure that I got all 6 episodes on the 1 3-hour tape.
Yeah, I'd have fucked it if it had been me, because I missed the beginning.
But always a fine art, wasn't it? Having exactly pausing and starting at the time that you wanted it to
not as tough for BBC programmes though, because no adverts.
Usually they'd be 29 minutes long, because there'd be like a 30-second promo in between them or something like that. I remember watching it going out live, and I remember belly laughing at certain laughs and thinking, when it started, I was a bit worried because, oh no, we're in one set again, and Sout was in one set, and I wasn't a huge fan of that episode. But this one is being shot more traditionally like a sitcom. It's taking place in the mids. When Rick does the "you were like a sprinkler as you went round," I think that gets the audience going, the quality is great, of the script.
Yeah, did you actually think the audience seemed to be reacting more so than in other episodes? There's a couple of really cackly laughs from a couple of lady
now
members.
Bottom fans are in the audience instead of, hey, do you want to see this new sitcom?
And I actually really noticed that over the credits at the end, people are like absolutely going mental when they're cheering, in the way that you would have done at a live show. And there's a real difference in, as you've said, like everybody knew exactly what Bottom was by this point. They weren't just sort of, what's this latest thing that Rick and Eddie do is.
I think you're right. At that point, it's this show that we like is on, let's get tickets for it, rather than the BBC audience thing of getting random people in for a show and they don't know what they're going to see until they get in there, or it's a show that they've never heard of before.
You can feel the warmth love. And the energy. And I think one of the things with Series 3 for me that makes the quality slightly suffer is because we all know Series 1 and 2 inside out. When you first watched it, you knew what you expected Richie and Eddie to be like, and Hull still delivers in terms of their performances of Richie and Eddie. There are slight pantomime moments, but Rick isn't really hamming up Richie in the same way that he does in Terror and Doe and several other episodes throughout the series.
So many things that the Series 3 is guilty of. It's not in this episode. It's strange. It's very strange that this one stands out so much.
I actually thought at the top of this episode, he almost sounds a little bit like Rick from The Young Ones, when he says, I was right. And there's a little,
there you are, I was right.
And later on, he sort of rolls his R's a little bit as well. Right. So he's being immature and childish a bit more in this episode.
I suppose it's also worth noticing there was a slight personnel change. Ed Bye directed Series 1 and 2, and then Series 3 was directed by Bob Spears, or Spires, I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
He died a while ago now, didn't he?
Yeah, I think 2009, something like that. But now, he was a seasoned comedy director. He'd done a lot of stuff, and I think he did a good job with Series 3. I still think Series 3 goes in a different tangent than Series 1 and 2, which is something we've kind of talked about before. But this series is where it starts to go down the cartoonish kind of avenue. It's less about two Beckett-esque misfits trying to eke out existence under a Tory government, and it goes more down the avenue of two juveniles who are often dressing up in silly clothes and doing things like...
It's almost like they've said, right, what do people respond to?
Yeah,
let's give them more of this now.
Yeah.
And they're playing to Bottom fans now instead of just doing what they wanted to do.
That's it, that it's become its own animal, hasn't it? So they've got the reaction from the live tour and all the big overplayed kind of set pieces that they do with each other, and people do find costumes funny. I can completely see what we'll talk about next week is why people do really remember the difference, because of course they actually reference it in this episode as well, don't they? Why Richie and Eddie are in the same shirts all the time, like why they're wearing always the same things. So it's more memorable when you think of Richie in that infamous devil's outfit.
This is, in fact, he's wearing his alternate outfit. Richie, he's not wearing the jeans and black tie. He's wearing his.
It's his smart clothes, isn't
smart
it?
Clothes. And but that's funny that they make a joke about that. You literally have only ever seen him in that white shirt, apart from pajamas. And it's a good joke to make. It's literally, he has just the one.
If you want to talk about standout moments, for me in this episode, it's easy. The Van de Hoosen speech and the vast slug.
It's one of my favourites. I think it is my favourite line.
Okay, I'll just do the plot as it is listed on iTunes. Richie and Eddie visit a fairground for a night of fun and frolics, as long as it doesn't cost Richie more than £3. They take a ride on the Ferris wheel and are still on it at the very apex when the fair closes down for the night. The fair is to be demolished the next day. Can they find a way of getting down before the night is over? That's the plot.
The dress reveal, very good.
Yeah.
Actually, you didn't see it coming at all.
Which is the start of this series' penchant for putting them in funny clothes.
They do it a few times, didn't they?
Although, I've got to say, the skirt actually does look quite good on Aid.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that. It's clearly been mugged off a sort of old woman, isn't it? That skirt that he's got on.
This episode has for me one or two too many instances of relying on the joke of we thought that man was a woman.
It's 3 times.
3 times, yeah. Now I know this skirt thing is part of it. But actually, doesn't it turn out that he would have actually mugged a woman of her skirt when she was unconscious?
I guess so. I think that's the woman that Richie used as a shield when Eddie was doing the human sprinkler. So how would Richie have been then? Do you think he'd have been in his more bullying persona or his crying, scared persona? While using a woman as a human shield, you know? Was he like, haha, fuck you, old woman? Or,
I think he would have been a bit like when he was at the hospital, sort of shoving the guy down the elevator shaft. After you, you stand there.
Yeah, it would have been instinct. He wouldn't have thought about it. He would have just done it. So basically, Eddie molested and stripped an old lady of her clothes when she was unconscious.
Well, he didn't molest her. He just took her stuff.
Is that all?
But
no, because someone else gets molested.
Right.
Did they say it's a guy, though? Because it's the Scottish... Obviously, it's the Scottish are allowed to be transvestites gag.
But the thing is...
They say, I think they're making an excuse. Why was that man wearing a dress? Scottish. That's complete bullshit.
Okay, so you think they've mugged an old woman, but they've mistaken it for a bloke because she was so ugly, I suppose.
She was covered in vomit, I suppose, so her face was covered in gristle and her face was
they've mugged the
gristly.
same person that he's picked up over?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought it was 2 separate people.
I think so, but then again, that would be covered in sick if that was the case, so it makes sense.
I thought it's another one, and then it's the setup to be able to say the Scottish are allowed to be transvestites, isn't it? Like that's why Aid's in that skirt. I don't think you get away with that gag now, can you?
I don't think
transvestites.
Having a pop.
You probably wouldn't be able to do anything where the punchline was the word transvestites.
I think the punchline there is that Richie doesn't understand, and he's just he's so upper class or fakely upper class that he thinks that they're transvestites, even though that's not what's happening at all. And then so
just having a go at the Scottish for wearing kilts, which has been a time-honoured stereotype.
They fucking love them, don't they? Wearing kilts must be brilliant because they get consistently teased for it, and they don't give a flying fuck. They love kilts.
Now, as well as the habit of wearing funny clothes in this series, this episode also does something else that we see increasingly through Series 3, which is going for outright fantasy in certain aspects. So down the line we have things like legs being chainsawed off and then sewed back on. In this one, spoilers, the hand of God appears at the end, and I wonder if this is slightly indicative, not to run down Rick and Aid, but if at the end of the episode they just run out of ideas on how do we end this. I know, we'll just do something totally out of the ordinary.
It's very meta, isn't it? It feels similar to Filthy Rich and Cat Flap, where they'd make jokes about the script not being long enough and having a go at the writers and things like that.
This is the first time where they reference that a BBC show when Aid breaks the fourth wall as well.
Yeah, now
isn't it? Because then later BBC, they do it in Carnival.
That
massively mentioned that like, making fun of the BBC when he steals the camera.
Sure, but it's the only time they mentioned that they are a BBC show.
It put me very much in mind of Rick turning to camera and talking to the listeners, as he refers to them, during the chess episode. But yes, it's the first time that we hear the word BBC mentioned in terms of the show. But also what I think is a nice touch is when Eddie does turn to the camera and address the audience, Rick plays it as though he doesn't know what's going on, so he kind of looks out as though, who's Eddie talking to?
Well, that's absolutely ridiculous. What are you looking at while they're on the Hand of God floating?
Yeah. But the Hand of God appearing, because they're at the end of the episode, it's almost like the thing of, it's the Monty Python thing of, we'll just have it blow up, or like, we'll just have the police turn up or something.
It's like the end of a sketch.
Yeah, exactly. Now, through the rest of Series 3, we see a lot more of their use of scene ends, not really sure what to do, musical sting, passage of time, come back with the new setup for some more jokes. Whereas this one is, we can't do that because we're in the one location.
Cutaways,
so it's a very odd and fantastical ending to the episode. It's the first time they both die.
I think it is, unless you count Bottom's live.
Yeah, they don't kill them. I mean, obviously, Rottweiler might have killed them.
I mean, if we're going to assume that they're cartoon animals, but being hit in the head with a frying pan would probably kill you, but we won't count stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So
and we won't
count Bottom live for some reason. That doesn't feel canon, even though I don't think they have any kind of canonness in Bottom. They're consistently wrong with their own past, aren't they? They change it as and when they want.
But interesting, we asked when they first mentioned Edward Elizabeth Hitler in our chat about Bottom Live, and it is mentioned here in Hull when Richie is doing his little fake
take a letter
chat to the police officer about the incident, because I don't think they have mentioned Elizabeth before.
Right.
So
which makes Bottom
feel
live
free
canon.
to write in if we're in any way wrong.
It must be said, Bottom continuity is all over the shop all the time anyway, especially in this episode.
There's some stuff here I'd like to bring up.
That music reminded me of my dad's funeral.
Yes,
you didn't know
let's
your
talk
dad.
about it now. Yeah, he was abandoned as a baby, yet he's somehow grown up, found his dad, and his dad has died, and he's gone to his funeral, and they played fairground music at his dad's funeral.
Unless it's not a lot of backstory about Eddie's life. Like, you think he would have been saying dad, but it wouldn't have been as necessarily birth dad, biological dad.
One of the many men that were lining up outside his mum's room or something, to pay visits.
Uncle Dad.
But therefore, do you think the insinuation there is that somebody of the travelling community was involved in Eddie's life, and that's why that music would have been played? Or would it be whoever organised his dad's funeral was so delighted that they played the happiest
I think it's
tune?
That. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Because it's a great little throwaway gag, that. The audience don't really pick up on it that much at all. Again, this episode where we talk about Richie's sort of psychology and what they must have been maybe thinking about when they wrote this, I'm sure they would have thought we had a lot of fun with calling them thieving bastard yobbos.
Yeah.
Let's be back at the fair. Yeah. And then how does Richie react with all of these and interact with all of these characters again? And as soon as he's having to deal with the people down below who are, waving with, they're not using all their fingers, and he doesn't understand what, they absolutely find him abhorrent, but he's talking down to them from a high above as well. He's at the biggest vantage point he possibly can be, and he's still sort of saying, listen up, you roustabouts, and the language that they use in Richie's monologue there. I love what is it you shout in the slums?
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's very telling what he says to Eddie. What is it you shout in the slums?
And what does Uggy 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 mean? Is that a football chant?
I think that's the thing where you reply with oi oi oi.
But is that where it comes from? Is that a football thing?
It sounds almost caveman, doesn't it?
Richie manages also to distill very well the attitude of teenage boys out with their friends. So again, watching this when I was 14, the whole thing of, no, let's not talk to the girls because then they'll know we like them. As an adult, you look back on yourself as a youth and go, why didn't you just go and talk to the girls? Why were you so scared? Because if I go and talk to them, they'll know I fancy them. That's exactly what you want. It's a very good distillation of what teenage boys are actually like.
Love his use of do it on them as well, showing just how unexperienced he is.
One little change in the word of the sentence, isn't it? And it's just
you've never touched a woman
hilarious.
ever. Do you notice this is the second time they've been to the fair and the second time Eddie has blinded someone?
Yes, yeah.
Second time he shits himself in the ghost train as well. I love the idea of like, oh, it's more scary there now. There's someone it's like, don't go in there. Why? Some crazy madman shit everywhere. It stinks.
Eddie's literalness with "How do I look?" You use your eyes, don't you? Which put me right back in mind's.
How do you feel?
Yeah.
With your hands?
Oh no, it put me right back to thinking of the Robert Llewellyn episode. What? You suck water in through your eyes. Eddie's ability to take things so literally is brilliant.
I mean, there's more double entendres as well that kind of build as well in this episode. With this skirt earlier on, with the I can see your point.
But
I can't hear. I can see your point without thinking of bottom.
But he also assists with the gag by pointing at Aid's crotch, doesn't he? You know, when he does it, you know,
guess he does.
It's not a general point at him. It's like, I can see your point, and his finger does angle down towards his cock.
The writing again. They throw away a gag a bit later where Richie says, "Eddie, take off all your clothes and knot them together."
And
Aid responds, "Not what together."
That's funny.
Yeah,
and that is funny. And again, I think a few people in the audience did pick up on it, obviously, but that in and of itself is a great line, isn't it? Again, just humour coming from Eddie, just literally hearing what Richie says to him and deliberately being obtuse if you weren't an absolute idiot.
Yeah, there's a lot of them being stupid to make the plot go forward here. Like, for example, them not cottoning on that was a dress straight away. Obviously, it's a dress.
Yeah.
Other thing, those women that have been following him around, who were Keith and Deirdre, Eddie's line, was she called Keith?
Yeah.
And Richie just think for a little while, like, how did you know her name? His name, whatever. Why are you this stupid? And I love that. Again, it's being teenagers again. Like, which one's mine? Like, that one's mine. I've just decided because I like her better.
Again, she had an earring.
Oh, fuck!
That's a different foreskin.
That's the one he sexually gropes. Which turns out to be a carny worker with just big pectorals. This is Keith and Deirdre. The lines to describe them are so thrown away, but I'll piece them all together at once. So this is the couple. It's a mad woman with a glass eye and is blind, and a tattoo of little and large on both her thighs, and with a partner who has a big beard, smokes a pipe, and with one leg, and both of them compete in a mixed double nude mud wrestling competition at a pub.
And again with their names as well, because isn't he one-legged mad dog Keith McFrenzy?
If you want to make a name a bit better, add a muck to it somewhere and it'll improve on it. Did the little and large reference date a little bit? I know little and large are. But
it has dated, I think. I know of them, but I couldn't actually remember what they look like.
But I know little and large
but
are.
Even in 1995, they hadn't been on TV for a while, you know?
Which is why it's even funnier, I suppose, that she'd have the tattoos of them on her thighs.
Oh, it's the throwaway thing when Eddie says that's why he's been avoiding them. That's why I've always pretend to have the mumps during mud wrestling week. There's something that both of them would have been so into.
But like, I love the effort that he's gone to avoid paying back a nominally small amount of money. At what point in Richie's life do you think he dubbed himself the Hammersmith Crumpet Radar?
In that moment, just then.
Absolutely, completely agree with you.
Yeah, I don't think anyone else has ever called him that before or since.
When I first saw this at the time, I didn't know what a Van der Huysen was.
No, me either. So it's a brand of shirts. It's quite a fancy, old-fashioned one that's fairly high regarded, I think.
Yeah, but honestly, I don't think it was. It wasn't until years later I was like in a department store or something, and then saw the sign for the shirts. Went, okay,
Well, it's not like they're rare and hard to find. It's like, oh wow, you've got a Van der Huysen. Like,
right, okay.
It's just a brand for shirts, but I think they were. I don't know when they were founded, but it's an old brand.
Yeah,
and it's a funny name again. They've gone for Van der Huysen.
Yeah. The rant is perfect from both of them because it's in stages, and you see the frustration coming out like it was in Richie for a while when he says it. And Eddie's reactions are fucking great as well. They're one of he's like nodding along and sort of taking it in, but being frustrated, and they both turn away at the same time. Fully old woman style.
It's the bickering married couple. It's great acting from both of them. Very comfortable in the characters. They're able to sit there and just play it. You don't have to do everything with dialogue. Rick's manicness and anger, brilliant.
I tell you, the dialogue has been so tight and quick. Don't really notice that they haven't moved up until this point, which is kind of when the characters do. I suppose it's just naturally when they sort of felt okay, they've not actually moved for around about 3 minutes, and they should have been on the move a minute the most, so it kind of makes sense.
Just before they have some very unconvincing and lightweight fake bricks and bottles thrown at them, when Eddie says duck and Richie says where, Is it a fake duck that is thrown at his face, or is it something else? It is a brick.
It's a brick, but it comes from the wrong direction where their eye lines were.
Right, yeah.
It comes slightly from the right, I think, and they've been looking sort of centre down there.
But I suppose that's to
and it's
evoke
kind of
the sense of a growing
underarm.
mob.
They're obviously underarm throws as well. Get a proper like.
I mean, it's the tallest, oldest Ferris wheel
and they're at the
in
top,
Western Europe.
They're at the very top of it.
They're very top. I don't think lobbing a bottle's going to get.
Isn't it 350 feet tall? Right.
I don't think even mad Keith McFrenzy with his arm muscle wrestling can be like lobbing it that far.
There's something that wouldn't play at all now is a throwaway joke that Richie touched up someone who it's funny because it turned out to be a guy who beats the fuck out of him.
But again, repetition of the joke of we thought it was a woman, turns out to be a guy.
But it's another thing. It's like it sounds like the guy obviously wouldn't have been into that, so Richie has just groped someone randomly, like, come on, darling.
Yeah,
which he has done before, isn't he?
Well, the guy had literally. Richie has either got the guy's knob out or the guy had his knob out because Eddie noticed he has got a foreskin pierced, right? So something really dodgy and horrible has happened there.
Yeah. Love that image.
Did you notice the dub, the words "the fair's closed" and Eddie? Did you notice that some of this has been dubbed?
Oh no!
So if you watch it again, when Eddie goes, "The fair's closed," and Richie goes, "The fair's closed, the fair's closed." Eddie. If you watch it again closely, you'll see Rick only said once, "The fair's closed," and then only said once, "Eddie." And presumably in the edit they've looked at it and gone, "Oh, it doesn't feel frantic enough." So we'll put one extra line of each. So now he goes, "The fair's closed, the fair's closed, Eddie."
And do you not see his lips moving then?
Definitely don't see his lips moving.
Now that you say it, I've always thought that little bit jars.
Yeah,
but I hadn't put together that it's a dub.
And now let's have a quick word from our sponsor.
I'm really mean and extremely groovy. Some people say I'm a bit of a smoothie. Oh! I can do the shake and the funky strut, and I can tell it's Tiger when my eyes are shut. Ah, this is Tiger. You can tell by the bubbles.
Great physical comedy from Rick in one of the things he does. I've got a photographic memory and I'm going to record all of you by turning my face into a camera.
Yeah, just open your eyes wider. That's how memory works. What's his pronunciation of sandwiches again? Well, not again. I think the first time.
This is the first time for sandwich.
But confirmation of his association as a Tory.
Yes.
Political joke of he gave someone severe brain damage who's now president of the
Board of Trade, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take that, Thatcher.
Yeah.
Or Major. Actually, thinking about it, we were way into one of the longest Tory government rules.
Yes, it's Major.
Happened.
John Major.
Who had taken over from Thatcher.
Yes, and he did 2 terms, didn't he?
Yeah.
Major
so
did
95, we were 15 years into a Tory government at this point.
I mean, you talk about awful backdrops in this episode.
Yeah.
The awful backdrop to bottom that created so much of Rick and Aid's work is that the Tories were in power.
How good a reveal is it that Eddie pulls out a pint from behind his
it's
newspaper?
Magical, isn't it? Well, so he's done that before in Smells. Essentially, he just produces
when they come home from the pub,
full drink alcohol. Pretty full as well.
Yeah.
I think it's because of the contrast between Richie sort of panicking, and then he's just so relaxed. He's like, I'm all right. I got a pint.
It's cut from the wide before. You see Eddie holding both hands, the newspaper, both hands, then cuts to a close up, and he's got the pint in the other hand. So it's like a bit of magic,
right?
Making magic. Yes. So logically damned, it doesn't matter.
Do you think the art department of this episode were taking the piss when they printed up the newspaper?
This isn't a quiz question because it's
so obvious.
Obvious. It's fucking funny.
Which is why I thought it'd be okay to mention it. I assumed it wouldn't be a question
because this is the first time I think where they have actually printed a bugle and then actually messed around with the headline.
What headline relating to Richie and Eddie's Hammersmith can we have on the front of the paper? I know we'll have no news shocker.
So they Comic Relief did a sketch of this where they used real news readers where it's like massive reports of massive shortage of news is coming from all across the country. Nothing is happening of any newsworthiness whatsoever. Nothing.
I think because the bugle is such a big plot point, isn't it? It's got to be there with them because they're then reading the article about, there's an article about the Ferris wheel in here. So they've had fun with it because it's an active prop, isn't it? In different way from in the past. But I suppose then there's also the reading out of when Eddie's eyes are upside down in burglary and things like. It's still there as a point, but this is so that you're looking at it,
isn't it?
It's a convenient dramatic device, isn't it?
Yeah, and great that they've missed the headline. They're just reading out, and then it's like right here under this headline that says it's going to be demolished.
Is anyone else impressed at the character of Richie, portrayed in this instance by an obliging stuntman? How strong?
Is it a stuntman?
Oh, all right. When we're not seeing Rick's face, how
strong? Like he can hold up his.
How strong is Richie's upper body strength that he's able to swing himself?
Well, that's not a stuntman.
No. When it's facing away from us, it's definitely a stuntman.
Okay, but there's a bit where you do see full body Rick Mel holding himself up.
You
do?
Are you sure?
Yeah. So I was going to go on about him being a stuntman.
I thought it was only from behind when he's doing the swinging, though.
So
Eddie pulls himself up, which there's a kind of cut, so you can't see his head as it goes up, but he does lower himself down fine.
Okay, so when Eddie is up on top of it and leaping, that's from behind. I reckon that's a stuntman.
Yeah.
When the carriage collapses, that's not Eddie, that's a stuntman, and obviously it's a paper mache Rick. I think when Richie is swinging himself, and you definitely see him propelling himself with his arms, we get some mid shots of Rick so that he's stood on something. Then when we see feet dangling, we don't see Rick's face. I think it's a stuntman.
Okay, maybe. But regardless of what actually happened in the reality of Bottom...
he's very strong all of a sudden.
He's also heavy enough to break the Ferris wheel, yet strong enough to support his own weight. Like masturbating, I suppose.
It's brilliant that, like, rather than the pain, like, just be too much, it's like the pain annoys him, and it's like, right, that's it, I've fucking had enough of this.
Fair enough. He's being consistently electrocuted. That's like, you can't do that, mate, you idiots. Like, no, that's pretty intense. And then Eddie, he just did it with his feet, though, didn't he? It seems like he's doing pretty well, and then he just comes back.
When Eddie decides to take the alternative approach and get up on top, do you think he thought ahead to how the curvature of a circle works?
No.
At some point, I'm going to reach the edge of this, and I'm not going to be able to maintain this walk any further. The first time I saw this, I thought Eddie was going to disappear off, come back with a full pint and go, I've got it, and then Richie would say something like, when's help coming? Oh shit, I forgot. It
does seem like the obvious gap.
But in this universe, even they are sort of saying, no, it would be impossible for him to get down that Ferris wheel. They are trapped.
Can I ask a question? I didn't think it made sense. The bit where Eddie's got Richie's watch, and then it's not a watch, it's a clock. Or maybe it's not.
It's a pocket watch.
It's a fob watch,
watch. And it's been emptied out in the antique clock place. Are the innards worth more than a gold watch?
Really? Well, all the parts would probably be very much antique and therefore worth things to different people. So, but again, similar to the chess set. Why has he sold them off as individual pieces and not all together? But again, it's probably just Eddie being a bit thick as well.
A little precursor as well. He mentions his motorbike, which is seen a few episodes later when he powers up the treadmill with it.
It's a very unimpressive motorbike.
It's a moped.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not a motorbike,
Eddie's logic when it comes to nicking Richie's stuff is very backwards. I know, I'll sell things off for the sum of their parts rather than the actual value of what they could be.
Actually, thinking about it, do you think it's so that Richie doesn't notice it's missing?
But he has got it, doesn't he?
That's why Eddie's not sold it off incomplete.
But
because then it would be,
it is
where's
it
gone?
It's in Eddie's pocket, isn't it? So
true, but if he's ever questioned, he's like, oh no, here it is, Richie. Like,
I suppose
it's feeling a bit light. You didn't want it that heavy, did you? And so because he doesn't sell off the whole of the chess set, he's left it there, but he's been going in and taking out antique pieces. So maybe it's actually that Eddie's wily. But
did you get the Dad's Army reference?
Mr. Manwaring.
I didn't get that straight away, but
that's quite similar to his
Miss Jones.
Miss Jones. Yeah.
I like that they do those little nods. And do you think it's also to send up people who just quote comedy programs?
Possibly.
Only sad, lonely people do that, don't they?
I have a question. Why Back in a Jiffy? What does Richie infer from that?
I don't get it at all.
Still do not understand, and I've tried to think about every single possible
Jiffy bag.
reason why Jiffy is.
Could Jiffy bag be
filthy.
A condom thing? No, I don't know.
Back in a Jiffy. I can only think that it might be some kind of Cockney rhyming slang that I've got no idea.
Maybe it's just he doesn't like him being jovial and using that sort of slang word. But it doesn't make any sense. It's odd.
Because the way he reacts, don't be so foul. Is that you've got to think that he thinks he's making it really filthy and dirty, whatever it is.
Now, can someone explain to me the QPR joke? Richie asked him, like, if I fall, die? You just get my ashes on QPR, and it's a misdirect. No, phew, thank you. Eddie's a QPR fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but because of that, he would never scatter Richie there.
That's the thing. Like, I wouldn't sully my team with your ashes.
Yes,
Okay.
but Richie's gag is that he wouldn't want to be scattered there. So that
it does make
just
sense.
on both sides, yeah.
Do you think, because of the way the set was constructed and they were essentially hanging in midair for all of the episode, at some point the makeup artist just said, I can't keep on climbing up on a ladder to wipe Rick's face. He can just be sweaty for the entire episode.
I think it's been established into his character now. He's sweaty.
Right. It's coming off him like buckets, isn't it?
He's in a life-threatening He's in a life-threatening situation. It makes sense that he'd be that nervous and scared.
And he's been in the same shirt for how many years?
It even says that you'll stink, so it needs to look like he stinks.
Yeah, I suppose. It's musky smell.
How fucking sad is it that Eddie is eyeing up picture of a bottle of gin? The concept of a bottle of gin. Oh, hello, lovely. You pathetic, sad, alcoholic bastard.
Yeah. Just looking at the Oddbins advert will keep him busy because it excites him.
I'm almost surprised that he didn't do what he did with the Sunday jugs and give it a...
Now, when Eddie gets tricked to go to the bar, now Eddie's got like a little glint in his eye when he's asking Richie... do you want anything? Because he's about to ask him for some money. There's something really sweet about that. You see Eddie. I've
got a little scheme here just to make a bit of cash.
Now, I've mentioned a baby sham. You notice that?
Yeah.
That's Vivian's drink of choice, wasn't it?
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
They do mention it once or twice in Bottom as well. It's a funny sounding word, isn't it?
They have some fun with some names of lots of different branded drinks in this one, don't they? Drambuie being the... one I remember.
The cash for the drinks comes from Richie's very manly purse.
Oh, his little coin purse.
Yeah.
This episode contains the only ever mention of Richard's sister.
Yes.
Yes,
Isn't
this is
that
true.
absolutely fucking bizarre?
I think I've always thought of Richie as an only child.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a weird theory about this. What's your sister like? She's just like me. Now, did she grow up with the auntie? Because I can't quite picture that. Well, what I picture is the auntie wanting a girl and dressing Richie up as a girl in front of a mirror sometimes. Oh, there's your sister, Richie, Richina or something. And, she lives somewhere else, and he can't quite get into his head. So he's just like, my sister's she's just like me. She lives elsewhere, and I won't bring her up ever.
And this is why Richie's bisexual tendencies come to the fore in Series 3.
He's got some confusion with things. He likes women's clothes and stuff. He finds that weirdly erotic. Yeah, I think I'm onto one there.
Interesting thought. I think... In all honesty, it probably is just to have the with smaller jugs gag that they wrote it in as a line to this episode. But I like that idea of a backstory of also Richie being abused.
It could be them thinking ahead and try and set up an episode later where Richie would play his twin sister, just like Adam Sandler did in that great film. Right. Robert De Niro could do a cameo instead of Al Pacino.
They throw in all sorts with Richie's backstory and his... I mean, doesn't he say Grandpa Willis is the one that owns that watch and he found it on the dead body in the Somme?
Yeah.
So Richie will just throw in family members at any point. But it's interesting that he doesn't name his sister. Yeah. So you're right, like, is this some kind of weird memory that he's got? And then he just... Or has she cut him out of her life? If you had Richie as a brother...
You would imagine he'd have better understanding of women if he grew up with a sister.
That's why I've always thought that he's an only child.
Yeah.
But maybe she lived away.
This episode sees one of my favourite Richie flights of fancy, which is also punctuated by Eddie brilliantly.
You're talking about the war story.
Heck, maybe even raise some kids. Yeah. The way you think Eddie is aiding it. Well, he does aid it for a brief bit, doesn't he?
Plays along for a little bit.
We're not getting out of this one. But then the payoff at the end, where you don't know where he's quite going, but to end it with, this is some absolute horseshit that we're talking, and why the fuck are we doing? I mean, I'm not quite. Yeah, like, why are we talking such complete and utter bollocks?
They are literally in danger, yet they're playing up with this sort of acting out a cliche. Again, do you think they know they're in danger?
Maybe dialogue that was intended for the live show.
It does feel a bit like a live show doesn't it?
Well, it sounds exactly like when they're doing, don't you ever yearn for change, and having that bit of fun. So you wonder whether maybe this dialogue, because it's clearly meant to be not breaking the fourth wall, but they're speaking outwards to an audience, aren't they? Like in a little weird,
they're acknowledging the cliche.
Yeah, back and forth, just taking the piss out of all those war movies, like Get Back to Blighty and
you're in Blighty.
Maybe even Raise Some Kids.
Yeah. Both of them totally comfortable in their characters to the point that we're able to have a part of it where Rick is just doing his, his Rick face. But 3 times, and it works because it's Richie, and he's just playing the character.
Yeah.
Lots of other sitcoms, no, we must have dialogue. If people aren't saying things, it's not funny.
Yeah.
With these guys, they can just let it sit and breathe and be the characters.
To quote Monty Python, it's not easy to pad these tapes out to half an hour, Like, this is a half-hour two-hander.
Yeah.
And it must have been that they wanted to just put in some filler to still funny. It's still very funny. I love that bit.
Incredibly tight. It's when nothing's happening. Okay, we'll make the Ferris wheel degrade a bit more.
So I don't mean filler as in all the buying time and they're filling, but they're just putting in flights of fancy, silly dialogue, which they have done in other episodes. But I think because they're doing it together, it really does stand out in this episode as a bit of fun. And then Eddie calls it, "Why are we talking such utter bollocks?"
Is this the first and only time we hear of Slip Digby, or is he mentioned elsewhere?
I think he is mentioned elsewhere.
It sounds such a familiar name, doesn't it? But
he's the guy that won the Stormwise Ring competition. Did you notice? So this episode has 2 mentions of 2 characters with 1 leg each. So it's a very high percentage of representation of disabled actors who aren't actually cast in it.
But I hadn't even thought about that. But slip as well as the first name for someone who's only got 1 leg. Yeah. Maybe that's what happened. He slipped and he ended up with 1 leg.
And when you consider that in a previous episode in the second series with Robert Llewellyn, that you had another character who had 1 leg. Yeah. It's a common theme in Bottom. I've just realised that.
They live in a weird sort of place where people's horrific injuries are quite common. People are blind, one eye.
Richie should really have lost his legs many a time, and Eddie sewing their legs back on, and But I think just losing limbs.
Bottom always has really good sound effects, but I don't think one has ever been woven in to a gag as efficiently and brilliantly as the here comes a plane, and it just ends up being a fart.
It's very good.
It's so obvious once it happens, isn't it? But when they are sort of doing those faces and then suddenly it's you got me with that toilet humour gag, but it's bloody brilliant.
To keep the plot moving as well, they keep dripping little bits of information about the Ferris wheel. Like, first of all, it's closed, look, there's something because we've annoyed people, and then it turns out that they've not just been abandoned, left there for the night. It turns out no, they're actually in danger because this place is going to be blown up. Their lives are at risk suddenly.
It's a very well plotted episode. The escalation of it's going to be blown up in the morning, so what can happen to escalate it? I know the guys can set fire to the carriage they're in. That ramps things up.
And then when the fire will get rid of the structural integrity of the cabin, so it'll start falling apart.
It's the classic farce, really, isn't it? That the situation builds to a point. I love
that. His idea of just throw it up in the air and then it'll explode, illuminating us. How long that takes to come back down? He threw that didn't he?
Which in and of itself is a joke, I think. And then the fact that Eddie's like, can I a word of caution, which usually Eddie wouldn't think about it at all. But even Eddie can see it's a bad idea.
Richie's applying film logic, the logic where if you shoot a car in the back, then it will explode because you've hit the petrol tank. Sure. The idea of obviously this thing will explode. But and how big are those flames coming up there? You look at it and think
it's a Molotov cocktail, isn't it? So it would.
No, but what I mean is, in terms of when they're shooting it, they've got someone there doing the practical effects. Those are big flames.
They're right next to them.
That they're right next to them. You can see them probably leaning away from them. When Aid says, "I think it's going to incinerate us," I think there's a hint of this is fucking hot.
Yeah, I suppose so. How sad is it that Eddie has such genuine affection and regret for his emergency betadine use? You sad, pathetic man. It's another one of your physics-defying drinks that you just so happen to have on you.
Also, that he's such an alcoholic that if it's the choice between burning to death or keeping hold and having his bitter,
he proper talked into it, didn't he? And one thing always annoyed me, he starts sprinkling it on the floor. He puts out all the fire and he's still got some left, and he puts a bit more. There's at least a mouthful there that he could have had. He was that desperate. Sad to see it go. He could have licked the glass clean. When Richie then he doesn't heroically stamp out the last of the flames. He just stands near it and then falls through. And then
what a great piece of
and needlessly gets pulled up by his own hair.
By his hair. That's so horrific.
Eddie is helping him there. He literally is saving his life, but
in the most painful way possible.
And obviously it couldn't be reciprocated because Eddie's bald. So maybe he's just jealous. You fucking hair bastard.
This leads us to one of what, in my opinion, is one of the best payoffs in terms of setting up a laugh in Bottom, which is the "Don't you call me overweight," and then sitting down and collapsing the entire carriage.
And it cuts to the cabin dropping, and there's a dummy of Richie that looks fucking terrible.
I think it's
I think it's a blank orb with a...
I think it's been... Now, whether you pronounce it paper mache or papier mache, I think it's been made of, like, paper.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. That to me makes it all the more hysterical. Yeah. If you ask me for my favourite moment at bottom, a lot of people will go for him falling down the stairs in Carnival as Kilroy, and I do love that as well. But this, as the comic timing on "Don't you dare call me overweight,"
it doesn't ruin it. It absolutely you don't. First time seeing it,
as he sits, right? Bang, it goes, and then it's that ludicrous dummy, and oh my god, they've now literally in peril, and just that it's just built to that moment.
The dummy's only seen for 2 seconds, I think.
But you're right, it is...
The way it completely drops and swings back.
It's a really vicious swing, isn't it? Yeah, and you're right, we don't really see it's a dummy because we're looking at the person... Which
adds to the ludicrous...
No. Well, you don't really notice it's him because it's a very brief shot, and we're looking at the stuntman who's in Eddie's costume at that exact moment anyway.
Do you think Eddie aids...
For that moment, that's a stuntman,
Is it? Okay, I've always... just thought that it is Aid doing that bit.
So they clearly had one stuntman.
Yeah.
and a dummy.
How satisfying was it, even at the time, that when they put this episode out, obviously they bleeped out Aid swearing, but you could so easily lip read exactly what he was saying.
Now, one thing I have to say...
It's there in fluff, isn't it?
It is there. It's all unbleeped for you to hear in all its glory. One thing I have to say about that moment, it's started by a montage of a bunch of silly... phrases by the two of them.
Right.
Yeah. Not one is a swear word.
Not
a single one is a swear word.
No. It's old style sort of swearing.
It's like we know how to swear, don't we? Up until now, no, you can't.
Yeah. Exactly. And hit the clip. I'd never heard those words put together in one sentence.
Too many, isn't it? Too many for the... Why does Richie, he looks so excited when he comes up with the idea of cheating fate? What does he want to cheat fate for? If we cheat fate, then we'd win.
I think when he's in this desperate situation, it's just like, well, if we kill ourselves, then we've won. Yeah, ludicrous.
Isn't it wonderfully typical of both Richie and Eddie that when they're facing the prospect of certain death, they try and take it as a chance to turn death into an opportunity to ogle some women. Not to actually have sex with them, but just to have a bit of a look.
Not I'll come back as Claudia Schiffer's husband.
Or
someone who's going out with, or I just want to be there so I can ogle her tits in the mirror.
Yeah, it's the thing. It makes sense that he says I've been a Buddhist for only 5 seconds, which makes sense why he has such a fundamental lack of
understanding of it.
First of all, doesn't understand. It needs to be organic. The words like be someone's bra. Like, well, no, and it needs to be someone. Not right now. It needs to be someone who be born now as you die, where you not understand that bit. And then the ludicrousness of, topless helicopter supermodels. That's a thing, isn't it? Like, no one's ever heard of that before. It's like, basically, he wants to possess a woman. Is what it is, because it's his thoughts and desires in a woman's body, isn't it?
Well, he's just trying to think of the easiest way to see her naked, and that's if he was her, I suppose, because she wouldn't know naked.
But she wouldn't know that.
The logic is not sound.
Which Richie then co-opts as his fantasy as well. I'll come back as Danny Minogue, and then basically just stare at myself dancing in mirrors.
Yeah. Again, though, this is why Richie and Eddie's relationship and friendship is so just sweet in many ways, because Richie points out the error in Eddie's thoughts, doesn't it? And then he gets excited.
It's such a good deal, actually.
Actually, you're onto a brilliant plan. And then they get each other worked up over their like little daft fantasy. That's why they're friends, isn't it? Because
there's
no one else would put up with their madness.
Something in common between them.
They also just love the detail. They must have had fun writing this, because the Buddhist vicars down there, and they've just basically gone probably done a spidergram of religious kind of threat, and how can we make that the funniest? And interestingly, Claudia Schiffer and Danny Minogue, I think that stood the test of time. They're still.
What are you going to say? Interestingly enough, they were Buddhists.
No, just they're still but maybe kids these days wouldn't know who they are, but they're still knocking around.
You get the reference, don't you? You get the reference. A girl. I will come back as a girl.
I'm still not fully sure what Way Down on That Old Swanee River is. Is that a reference to something?
From something, isn't it?
I would have said it's an old blues song, but I wouldn't 100% no.
Did you notice Aid very deliberately shake the carriage to give them that moment of, oh my god, it's going to...
I didn't.
Yeah.
But is he reacting, or is he making it happen?
No. It's a bit too obvious. Yeah. How good is God's hand? That's a really good... Yeah.
I mean, the fingers don't move. It moves out. I like the fact that Richie called it good old C of E.
Yeah. Well,
you get the feeling he doesn't know what C of E stands for, because he said, I
find it so satisfying, story-wise, that the carriage collapses the moment they step off it. It's like, if God hadn't turned up, they would have bought the farm there, you know?
Oh, yeah, because they say... Because,
at the last moment, yeah.
He actually does say, doesn't he, as he steps on, like, very good timing, you know?
So the ending is Eddie turns to the viewers and basically breaks the fourth wall, saying that we don't believe in God, do we? And then Richie completely goes along with that, despite the fact that he definitely does believe in God. Richie believes in God.
He's prayed several times, hasn't
he definitely believes, because he's scared to find out he's going to hell and all these things. So why is he...
Don't you think...
Him admitting he doesn't believe in God is what kills them.
But don't you think at that point, because Aid's broken the fourth wall, that's Aid speaking, and he's talking to Rick?
I suppose so.
So I think that's why that is, because Aid is like, well, we're at the BBC, you know, so he's Aid, isn't he? He's not Eddie in that moment. So then Rick's like, oh yeah.
So are you saying? Are you saying?
You convinced me.
So are you saying that at the end of this episode, Rick Mail and Adrian Edmondson die, not Richie and Eddie?
Well, no.
I wasn't trying to be funny. I was being serious.
They were slightly ahead of themselves there for 20 years. And they've only got it half right so far.
Strong and satisfying end to a very strong and satisfying episode.
Yeah, and as you say, the opening to series 3, after watching that first episode, it was like, oh, brilliant. Back. Every episode's going to be as strong as before. And I'm sure some people out there listening will probably disagree with us and say, I love series 3.
No, see, I think I don't want to be too mean on series 3 at all.
No,
we need
it's
to
still
think.
Great.
Look, I think they were making it for kids. Then series 3 is aimed at kids, and watching it, I fucking loved it. Going out, but just
aimed at the kids.
I think they've realised where their audience is. We were making them for young people, as the young ones, and then we'll make a new series. People have grown up by then, and then oh no, we've got young kids again. Okay, fuck it, we'll just do it for young kids.
I think that because the swearing and everything that's going on, I think they're still. I mean, it's comedy, isn't it? So if you wanted to look at making comedy and making people laugh, like that, you know, your sense of humour is created from childhood upwards. So I actually would argue that they're not making it for kids as such. Like, it's not a kids program.
I guess they realised more kids were watching it, so they.
Yeah, I mean the Halloween thing, I suppose. Like, you know, just. But again, I think that's just a writing point of like, what can we do an episode around? So they were probably running out of a few ideas.
That's the last holiday they could do, isn't it? They had if you count birthday as a holiday, right? A birthday, Christmas, Halloween. What other ones are there?
Well,
Valentine's Day. They could have done a Valentine's Day, actually.
Any particular highlights for you guys?
Immediately say Van der Hosen and the timing of the carriage and the overweight young man line. They're the two standout moments for me.
I want to give a mention to the fight, which we didn't really mention. It's right after all the bollocks thing where Eddie starts kicking him. He gets up, gets a vantage point, that's stamping on his head, basically.
It's well choreographed and makes use of the space that they have.
My goodness, yeah. How could that have been choreographed any better in such a small area of space? It's like a fight that close, you just think, they hit each other or something, but they did something a little bit different about it. They forced this limitation on themselves, and yet they've made it work.
And they excel with it, don't they? Yeah.
I think this is the pinnacle example of their writing, of their dialogue, of them building stories in your mind. You know, in your mind's eye, you don't see so much of this stuff, yet you do see it very well.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to conjure up an image of Keith and Deirdre, you can, can't you? You don't never see them on screen. Yeah,
when you consider so much of what happens in this episode happens on the ground, either before they get up in the Ferris wheel or while they're up there, and yet it's just the two of them on camera for the entire 30 minutes in real time.
I mean, for me, a lot of people go on about the Two-Hander episode of Porridge as being a standout episode of British comedy. Yeah, Porridge, Ronnie Barker.
Oh, okay, yeah. I thought you was saying the episode of Bottom Called Porridge.
No, sorry. So the sitcom Porridge with Ronnie Barker and there's two of them in the cell all through the thing. But for me, like, Whole is up there in terms of its clever writing. But then so's Contest, and I think I've said in the past that the Two-Handers are always my favourites. So Whole's stand out episode for me in Series 3, definitely my favourite.
For me, probably my highlight for this episode is the carriage collapsing under the weight of Richie's voluminous bottom, as well as a couple of the gags in it, such as Vast Slug.
Yeah, fantastic.
But so for you guys, any niggles in this ep?
I missed the first few minutes of it.
Right.
And that's their fault.
Yeah, I mean, now you can just rewind it when it's even on live TV. They didn't really think of doing that back then. Yeah. So, that's a complaint.
So you're complaining about the past?
about the past limitations of technology.
Ange, any niggles for this one?
No, I honestly don't.
An exceptionally tight episode.
Yeah.
I've only got two very minor ones.
Oh,
one
come on then, you anal bastard.
The owl
What do you
noise?
hate?
One is the slight repetition of, oh, that woman was actually a man, jokes. And the other thing is, and this is really minor, there are sections in this when Aid keeps standing in Rick's light, so he's casting a shadow over his face. So usually actors are very good at this. They know where the light is, and so they're very careful to stay out of the other actor's light. But there are numerous times in this where I'm looking at Richie's face, and it's like, he's got a shadow cast over it.
So do you think that's a fault of Aid or the direction
Well,
from Bob Spears, or do you think it's just literally the proximity they're in?
Usually an experienced actor will be aware of it. Also, the actor whose light is being blocked will usually try and find a way to find the light.
I can't imagine Rick being happy with his light being blocked.
But also, usually the director would spot this kind of thing and say, okay, can you just edge it? But also, they are restricted by the space they're in.
Do you think this is them in literally unfamiliar surroundings, a new set that they've not been in before, and it's a new director who's working with people who've just done 2 series that they write themselves?
Possibly. But then what you do in that instance is, as soon as you see it, if the actors say we can't move either way, you say, right, move the light or put another light up. So we don't. So the shadow issue is any standout sound effects for you guys?
The airplane. Airplane fart gag. That's brilliant. The cranking of the carriage as it falls.
There's one that's really subtle, and it's not a loud one, so it's easy to overlook. But it's the after Eddie's kicked Richie in the face a couple of times, Richie pulls his cheek down away from his eye, and you get this wonderful sort of crunchy
noise. That's good. And with that, it's time for a quiz. We're going to do a quiz on this week's episode. It's a best out of 10, and this week's questions have been a fucking nightmare to come out with because they're 2 people in a very confined space with very little things happening. So this has been a fucking absolute chore. So
you mean you haven't counted how many light bulbs are on the outside of the Ferris wheel?
How many sparks hit Richie as the stuntman is swinging away? Oh my god! I think there is a light bulb question based on Matt's face.
Question 1.
Fucking hell!
Christ.
Question 1. Each carriage has a pattern of light bulbs on one of the arms.
For fuck's sake!
A bunch of yellow ones and a bunch of 4 ones. How many red ones are there in each arm of the light bulb?
I'm just going to buzz in to guess.
Okay.
5?
Oh, okay.
Right. I'm going to say 12.
Okay, well, it was 4.
Fuck.
It was 4,
right.
And I think like 7 yellow ones. But
so just no points there.
No points for that. Okay. Question 2. What is the sporting headline on the back of the Hammersmith Bugle? Okay, that was Ange.
Chaos tie?
Oh, you got all the words correct, but the wrong order. It's cup, tie, chaos.
Oh, come on, give me that.
No.
Well, I was going to say I'll go and give her the point, but you are the quizmaster this week, so it's entirely up to you.
I've got all the words.
But in the wrong order.
I swear I've been more lenient with you bastards in the past. All right, whatever.
Now, Richie is wearing his sort of reddish-brown smart outfit.
Yep.
Yeah, basically. Okay, which he doesn't wear all the time. What was the last time we saw him wearing this outfit? Ange? Christmas? Yes.
Fuck.
So holy?
Yeah,
it was holy, yeah. 1 point for Ange. Question 4. Why is this Ferris wheel famous? Okay, Ange?
It's the tallest and oldest in Western Europe.
Yes, correct. Absolutely correct. I'd have accepted just tallest, but tallest and oldest.
Okay.
It's 2 points. Okay, next question.
All right.
Who won the Stalk Margarine competition?
God, that was
I think that was Paul.
Slip Digby.
Slip Digby, yes. We did mention that in the episode, but long enough ago that I thought, I don't have any other questions, so, I had to. Right, next question. What bitter is it that is Eddie's bitter?
Emergency bitter.
Yes.
Oh, right, okay. Fucking hell. I was thinking that can't be that simple, surely. Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't have a name on it, does it?
No,
Could be mild, I suppose, but that's not we don't know. It's emergency bitter. Now,
what score's that?
It's 2 apiece now. Next question. How long are they actually stuck on the Ferris wheel for when Eddie says we've been here for about 7 minutes?
No, that was me.
It was you, Paul?
So, okay,
You mean in the episode time?
Yeah, it's in real time.
Okay, when he says we've been here for 7 minutes, I'm going to say that at that point they've been there for 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay.
Not right, okay. Well, is this a sort of whoever's closest kind of thing, or?
Well, yeah, I guess so.
All right, well, I'll just guess 17 minutes.
It's bang on 17 minutes.
Fucking hell.
I'm sorry, Paul.
Oh, yes, I knew that.
What was Richie's one wish on reflection about his life?
He just that it had been completely different.
Yes, Paul. Okay. You are neck and neck.
Yeah.
All right. Final question. When was this episode first broadcast? Right, who buzzed in? Who the fuck's that?
Did I buzz in first?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it was first broadcast in... You want the exact date, yeah?
As close to the exact date as you can.
4th of January, 1995.
Okay.
And that's incorrect, is it?
That is not technically correct.
Oh,
Okay.
it's not technically correct.
It's not technically correct, but Ange, what?
I'm going to go with the 15th of January.
15th of January. Well, it is actually the 6th of January, so Paul's closest.
But I think that's just a no point, surely, because we went with no points earlier on the night bulbs.
If you'd been nearer, would you be insisting it was a no points one? Or?
No, because earlier I could have been like, oh, well, I got closest to the light bulb, so that's my point. No, it's just wrong, isn't it?
Tiebreaker. Okay. Now, what is it that Richie sees when he flashes before his eyes when he dies? Okay. Who was that?
Angela pressed it first.
I think that was me.
Yeah.
A relentless collage of grey interspersed with trips to the lav.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So I think it's endless collage of grey, I think. But, fuck me, I'll accept that.
Well, no, because it should be exact, really, shouldn't it? It shouldn't be what's near, you know.
I do like
it shouldn't be within 2 days of it.
Grey.
Interspersed is an excellent word there.
It is, yeah. Okay, well done, Angela. This week's winner of the quiz. Well done. Hang on, say that again.
No bitterness.
Okay, well done,
Say
Angela.
it like you mean it.
Well done, Angela.
Say it like you're not like Victor Meldrew clapping Rick as he walked up to collect his British Comedy Award.
Well done, Angela, winner of this week's quiz.
Do you know that was for Rick Mail
close.
Presents as well, which was not that funny a show. It's been winning best comedy.
Yeah, to be fair, I can see why Richard Wilson was...
That's fucking funny.
I mean, Rick Mail Presents was another one of those things where it was presented as comedy drama. I think because they probably went, these scripts we can't really call them comedies,
Wasn't
can
it
we?
just comedy actor that he won, though?
I think so, yeah.
So, Rick won hands down.
And to be fair, he was playing numerous different characters in Rick Mail Presents, whereas
not
Richard
just the
Wilson
one
just...
character,
yeah.
Victor Meldrew.
Not entirely that funny. I have the DVD of that, and I think I've only watched 2 or 3 of them. It's meh.
Do you think it was their way of rewarding him for being generally good at comedy?
I guess so.
Yeah.
I would have thought so.
Well, great. That's series 3 off to a fucking horrendous start. All downhill from here, much like Bottom. I think.
What are you talking about? The quiz or just the episode?
I think the whole episode. I think the whole thing. I think we're really scraping the barrel. This series is going to be such a decline.
With series 3.
I mean, mate, wait until we're doing the latter part of the live episodes.
Yeah,
I might just turn up
5,
drunk for those ones. Anyway, we'll see you back next week for the next episode of Series 3 in its continuing decline of quality.
I think, This one,
If any of you disagree, by the way, and think that Series 3 is better, you're wrong. But do please email in. We are at 11maffickingparade@gmail.com, or you can follow us on all of the social media that's worth following at Talking Bottom.
Don't forget, all of the past episodes are available to download, and please give us a review on iTunes if you're so inclined. It really does help us. You'd be surprised how much.
Thanks.
See you next time.
Bye.